Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be here once again, and I hope that my audience can hear me. If yes, you can just like the video, send me a thumbs up, anything that tells me that you can see me, you can watch us. Okay. All right. To begin with, I would like to welcome each one of you. Thank you so much um, for your time to join us for this conversation. To begin with, let me just introduce myself. My name is Fatma, and I am founder of Evolved. I'm a certified parent consultant who work with teachers. We conduct a lot of mindfulness programs for students and teachers. So social emotional aspects and mindfulness becomes extremely important to me, especially as a journey, because that's something that I walk on every day. Every day is a learning for me when it comes to my own emotions. How do I relate to them? How do I relate to my inner world? How do I relate to my outer world? And finances, money, or wealth management is something which is like a very dark space, I would say, or an untouched space for me, because I think there's so much emotions attached to it. There's so many thoughts, there's so many values, so many beliefs that kind of emerges from that topic. I thought it was a good topic for us to explore right now, because I know that a lot of us are um, trying to figure out how do we manage our finances, wealth, and how do we start and how do we end. And that was my intention, is to start a conversation. It's a process, there's no outcome to it. We just kind of get together, and we kind of have a dialogue based on this topic and see where we go. And to get this going, I thought I should get a friend of mine, someone who I know, and someone who we've had a conversation for a very long time to work together. Someone who is also a practitioner, someone who believes in mindfulness and in being present to emotions, to money, to relationships. So he does carry that learning, that idea, and how to apply it in his life. So let me quickly introduce you to Rahul Kalra. Welcome, Rahul.
Okay.
So, quick introduction. Rahul started investing at the age of 17. Wow. And never stopped and found himself financially free. That's the word that caught my attention, by the way, Rahul. Money wise, at the age of 32. Along the way, he learned that financial freedom doesn't come with just money or wealth, and financial education that builds skills, intelligence, and mindfulness, when coupled with money, brings about true financial freedom. And that's, I think, his motto, and that's what he works with. He is a CFA certified coach, and he set up a wealth management company in 2006, which over a period of time has today evolved into Ashunya Financials. And I think their company works towards building and nurturing relationship with money, as well as financial and fitness skills, which are, according to him, an essential life skill. So, welcome, Rahul. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to have this conversation. We've been talking about this for such a long time, so it's good to have you here. So, let me just start with something very very basic. You are somebody who advocates financial intelligence as being an essential life skills, and it's, I know we've had these conversations over a period of a year or so. And so why is it so important to you? What does it mean to you?
Okay. So, Fatima, what in response to that question, I'm going to try to take it down to real fundamentals. All right. So we'll take a couple of steps back and we'll try to understand the basics first.
Okay.
What are life skills? Any skill that helps you traverse life with a little more ease are life skills, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, put that into context with any action of ours is very,
Mm,
very determined and dependent on the times that we're living in.
mm,
Okay, what do I mean by that? Look around you and look at how we set our lives up. Look at
mm,
how we set the world around us up.
mm,
At the very epicenter of everything around us is economy, is finance, is money, is commerce.
Hmm.
So you and I essentially have been born into that generation where at the center, at the core of everything is money.
Hmm.
Let's assume for a while that we were born a few hundred years back. So there was no concept of money, there was no currency, right? And the only medium of exchange you had was goods for goods, like for like, kind for kind. It was called the barter system,
Hmm.
right? So if you and I were born in that generation, then money would not be a life skill. So let's get our perspective straight first. It's because we're living today and we've set up our lives the way we have, money becomes important.
Yeah.
Okay?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, now think about it. You and I, all of us, were schooled for about 20 years. And while
Hmm.
we schooled so that we become employable and we can then make a livelihood. What's a livelihood? Another name for money.
Hmm.
Once you get out of school, you start working. And the rest of your life, the only thing that you're doing is working towards sustaining a livelihood.
Hmm.
Livelihood is nothing else but money, once again. So from the start of your life till the very end, the one thing that remains with you is money. Okay?
Hmm.
Let's look at it from another perspective. All of us human beings, three very fundamental existential truths exist for us. Okay? What are those three? You and I are sitting here and we were born because somebody had sex, right? So
Hmm.
sex becomes the first existential truth, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
All of us are going to die, right? We don't know when, but death is certain, correct?
Right.
Between being born and dying, what's the one thing that stays with you all through? The one thing that you need to sustain a life or a livelihood? Money again.
Hmm.
Think about the scenario today. I thought I
Hmm.
wouldn't go in this direction. I thought I'm going to steer clear of a discussion about COVID because everybody's talking about it. But
Hmm.
I'll make a very short reference.
Hmm.
What's happened with COVID worldwide? The entire world is being brought to a standstill now.
Hmm.
And the two things that every country is only talking about: how to save lives and how to save livelihoods, right? So health and money has suddenly become the focus for every single country out there.
Absolutely.
Look around you, people around you, your circle, family, friends, etc. You're
Hmm.
probably seeing a rise in everyone coming back to you and telling you there's financial stress. I have money problems. I don't know what to do next.
Yes.
And COVID's brought that upon us.
Hmm.
Now put all of this together.
Hmm.
And if money is so omnipresent in our lives, then how can intelligence and skills and mindfulness with respect to money not be an essential life skill? It's a no
Hmm.
brainer, really.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm glad that an unseen virus is probably awakening people to something as fundamental as that.
Hmm.
And so that's why it's probably uh, a really essential life skill. No getting away from it.
So what you're trying to say is that between life and probably the time that we kind of finish with our life experience, the only thing that is also, there are so many things that goes on. There's relationship, there's emotion, there's growing, but somewhere we don't give that importance to money, and in a way where we teach ourselves and people around us how to relate with money. It's not about spending, it's not about looking at it objectively, but it's about being somewhere connected to that space, but probably in a sort of a abundant sort of way, because I think people are connecting to this topic in a from a very or should I say space of lack, not from a space of abundance. So I think the intelligence sets in over there. Am I right?
Oh, you know, uh, I'm not going to answer that question yet because I probably think in answering that question, we're going to jump 2 steps forward.
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't feel that all these words that you've used a
Mm.
lot of words that
Mm.
we probably don't even know the real essence of.
Mm.
Okay. And that's why
Mm.
our primary responsibility becomes, our work becomes going back to the drawing board and understanding what these words really mean,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
You use the word financial intelligence, you've used the word relating with money, you've used the word money itself.
Mm.
So let's get granular and understand what's the meaning of these words first. How does a
So
layman really understand what is financial education? This guy's talking about financial education. Are you talking about a school that teaches finances? No, no, that's really boring. But that's probably
I
not
agree.
the meaning of the word financial education,
True.
right? And so we'll take it bottom up now. Okay.
Mm.
It blew my mind away when a few years back I understood what the word education really meant.
Mm.
The word education comes from the Latin word educare, and it
Mm.
means to draw out from within.
Mm.
And when I read that, I was
Mm.
actually still, and I said, that just makes so much sense.
Mm.
And if you compare that to our schooling and the way we're taking education out to everyone, it's just the
Mm.
opposite. You're
Mm.
cramming information from the outside and calling it education, when actually the word itself means draw out from within.
Yes.
What does the word intelligence mean? It means the ability to make finer distinctions,
Mm.
to be able to use your discerning intelligence to make better choices.
Mm.
What does the word mindfulness mean? The ability to be aware of how your head works, your mind works, your body works, your thoughts work, your emotions work, and then how your money works.
Mm.
To be able to put the why in every conversation, mindfulness is required. Why do you
Reflection
want to
mode.
know about money? Yes.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
awareness, the reflection, the perception.
Sure.
And hence we come to the definition of financial education. Financial
Mm.
education builds financial intelligence, skills, and mindfulness.
Mm.
Now, it's very interesting because it doesn't end there. In school, we were all taught one way, right? Or probably a big part of our education industry teaches us keeping only one intelligence in focus, maybe two. And there may be pockets that are changing right now, but
Mm.
generally, that's what you see.
Mm.
So in schools, they give importance to intellectual intelligence and probably one more. You could take your pick,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
But the irony is that there are multiple intelligences, right?
Mm.
And you know that, and a lot of
Yeah.
people probably listening right now know that.
Mm.
Intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, interpersonal social intelligence, spatial intelligence, physical intelligence, creative, numerical intelligence, verbal linguistic, the list goes on.
Mm. Mm.
Now, if there are so many intelligences as human beings, if we have so many intelligences, then why are we only being taught in one way? Financial
Mm.
intelligence, on the other hand, if I have to define financial intelligence in terms of the kinds of intelligence that it covers, I've defined it, and this is how I define it. Financial intelligence is intellectual intelligence plus emotional intelligence plus financial mindfulness. So it's a
Mm.
simple equation which says FI equals IQ plus EQ plus financial mindfulness. What does all of this mean for the layman? He's probably thinking, hey, again, giving me equations. I don't want to learn another equation. So, what does it mean for the layman? What's financial intelligence? The intelligence that helps you build skills so that you know how to make money, how to keep that money, and how to put that money to work for you so that you don't have money problems anytime else in your life ever again.
Mm.
And you require intelligence for that and not just money because money can keep you rich. Money makes you rich. What keeps you rich is financial intelligence. And if you're riding that roller coaster all the time, saying, today I have COVID and hence I have a financial problem, tomorrow I'll have something else, the constant there is not money, the constant there is lack of financial intelligence.
So what you're saying is that there is a set of skills that we need, and then you have your mind comes into play, and then there's an emotion aspect that comes into play as well. And of course, the mind, when I talk about the mind, there's a set of attitudes that we need to bring in as well. So, a combination of all this would probably lead to financial intelligence. Yes? So, probably I got that point. So, let me ask you another question. So, why is financial skills in combination of, let's say, mindfulness you feel is required? Like how do we connect both the concepts?
Okay. Why is mindfulness required? We just define mindfulness as awareness and perception, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Understanding how you work, understanding how different aspects of your life actually work, right? So paying enough attention, paying enough focus to that is
Hmm.
essentially the baseline definition of what mindfulness is.
Hmm.
Why is
Hmm.
mindfulness important with money? Mindfulness is important with money because it brings in the concept of why. The first question you want to ask yourself, why am I really earning money? What am I going to do with this money that I earn? How does money really make me feel?
Hmm.
Why are these emotional upheavals always that come along with money affecting me? This
Hmm.
is the process that mindfulness starts. Now, mindfulness in that sense is a neutral concept. You can apply it to any part of your life. We're trying to apply it to finance and money. And we're asking the exact same questions in specific respect to money and finance. And that's why mindfulness is important because it gives you a sense of meaning with your money. It's not just hollow money, it's also in terms of what do you want to do with it. Brings in the whole concept of why.
So what you're trying to say again, I would say is that I think when we bring in mindfulness into financial intelligence or financial skills, whatever we would want to say it, it kind of
Hmm.
allows us to connect with the purpose and meaning. Is that
Yes, yes, it's going to break it down for you into two parts. Okay, mindfulness.
mm, mm,
It's going to make you understand why you want to do it,
mm,
but also very importantly, it's going to make you explore how money really works.
mm,
Now, let me give you an example. It'll probably be easier for everyone to understand. Now, you very beautifully call this conversation that we're having. It says personal finance meets emotional well-being. Yeah,
yes.
and it brought a smile to my face when I saw that because that was very, very eloquently put. What is the connection then between emotions and money? And you'll be
Mm,
surprised to know that there is no direct correlation. All right. And to
okay.
understand then why they're so closely related in everybody's lives, we're probably going to have to understand, take a little bit of help of how the human body works, how the human brain works. And I'm going to try to not keep it very technical, try to simply put it out there, but stay with me, okay?
Mm,
What are emotions? Nothing else but a concoction of chemicals and hormones in your body, right? So if I have to make it really simple, two kinds of emotions. So one kind of concoction of chemicals in your body and you feel nice or pleasant. Another kind and you feel not so nice, not so pleasant. Essentially, that's what
mm,
is the definition of an emotion, right?
mm,
Now, how can I trigger these emotions? How can I trigger these changes in my hormones and my chemicals so that I have these X and Y emotions? Two ways. With the mind, using my thoughts, and with the body, by using an action, right?
mm, mm.
You with me so far?
Yes, makes
So
sense.
every time I think about a thought, and I keep thinking about it over and over again, it generates either an X or a Y emotion in me.
Mm,
Every time I act on something, and that's why exercising and playing a sport and working out makes you feel so good because it then triggers those chemicals, those hormones in your body, which are called happy hormones, and you're feeling a certain emotion, right?
mm,
Now, if my thoughts about money were based on me not having any financial intelligence or me not knowing how money works, if my thoughts are based on that, then my thoughts are based on something that is uncertain because I
Hmm.
don't know it. It's unclear to me.
Hmm.
Now, when something is uncertain in the human body, in the human brain, we've been given something called the reptilian brain. And our first response to something that's unknown is a survival instinct, fight or flight response. And the only thing that generates in you is fear and anxiety.
Hmm.
So, what am I trying to establish? If your thought or your thinking process about something is based on you not knowing how it works, that uncertainty, no matter what that uncertainty is, going to lead to you being anxious and to you being fearful.
Hmm.
Now, let's
Interesting.
assume, on the other hand, that if your thought process was based on you knowing about it, suddenly there would be no uncertainty. There would be a lot more clarity. And with clarity comes the calming of the human brain. And suddenly you're
Hmm.
not feeling stressed or anxious anymore,
Hmm.
right? It's
Yeah.
funny. One thing that comes to my mind is, and people will probably relate with this whole reptilian survival instinct brain keeps playing out with people all the time. Every time they go shopping,
Hmm.
it plays
Yeah.
out.
Hmm.
The
Give me
concept
an
is called
example.
instant gratification.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'm Fatima and I'm out shopping and I'm in the mall with my daughters and suddenly see something that I really want.
Hmm.
And there's no way I can't have it because my mind's telling me, you know what? What if it's not there anymore the next time I come back? What if the prices
Yeah.
go up? I have to have it. What if it goes out of style? What if it's out of fashion? And my
Hmm.
reptilian brain says, you've got to get it now. There's a whole
Hmm.
industry out there today working on that, and it's called FOMO,
Hmm. Hmm.
the
Hmm.
fear of missing out.
Missing out. Yes.
It's based on fear because you miss out.
Hmm.
And so that's how emotions and money are not directly correlated, but they become correlated because we don't know how our brains and how our bodies function. And
Hmm.
that's where mindfulness comes in. Because once you know how your system functions, how your thought processes function, how your body functions, you know what gives rise to a good or a bad emotion, if I can use those words.
Okay. So, Rahul, let me just ask you a very, very, let's say, a very basic question for a layman, someone who doesn't understand mindfulness at all. Okay.
Okay?
So, let's take it that. So, how would you explain mindfulness education or let's say intelligent in a very simple way for anybody who doesn't understand the concept of mindfulness? But if you have to, let's say, explain it to a child, maybe, then what is the simplest way that you would like to express or explain?
Well, that's a challenging one. You're putting a child out there and making it a challenge for me. It's far easier talking to adults. It's so difficult talking to children.
So
How
let's
would I
talk.
explain financial?
Let's
Yes.
take it for adults. Let's take it for adults.
Hmm.
Anyone who doesn't know, like you and I know what mindfulness is. Maybe there are a couple of
Oh,
them who
that,
know it. Then for
oh,
some of
that's
them,
super easy. Super easy. So I'm
so,
not going to define it for you. For adults, super easy. I do this day in and day out. All right. I wish I
mhm.
could talk to more children, but I'm scared of that. So, what is financial mindfulness for you without the definition? If I had to tell you, Fatima, today we're going to be doing a financial mindfulness exercise.
Mhm.
I'm going to leave you with a few questions. Questions that
Mhm.
I just asked you 5 minutes back, the same ones. Number one, okay, how does money make you feel? Okay. Number two, what are the thoughts that come up in your mind when you talk or think about money? Okay.
Mhm.
Number three, why is money important to you? Why do you want to earn money?
Okay.
And number four, once you earn that money, how are you going to put it to use? Based on what?
Mhm.
I could go on with these questions, but essentially, this in the nutshell, once you sit and actually answer these questions, you're probably going to understand experientially what financial mindfulness is. Instead of me verbalizing it, you're probably going to experience exactly how it works. So
Okay.
think about this, Fatima. What if I had to put it in another way? What if I told you you had uh, two questions? If you had 10 years to live, all right,
Mhm. Mhm.
what would you do to earn money? How would you spend that money? Number one.
Mhm. Mhm.
And number two, what if you had all the money in the world and you never ever had to work for money again?
Mhm.
How would you then look at money?
Mhm. Okay, that's interesting. So, would you recommend, or how, what would you recommend for someone who wants to, let's say, start building financial intelligence? So, let's say me, I would want to do that. So, where do I begin with?
Okay. Okay. I'm going to break this down into steps for you. Okay. Number one, the starting point for everything. And the good news is that it doesn't require money for you to build financial mindfulness. Okay.
Hmm.
What it requires actually is something far more important than money, and that's called self-awareness.
Hmm.
Okay. To be able to first tell yourself that you might not know something, and then to tell yourself, I want to ask questions and find out, that's where that process begins. Number one. Number
Hmm.
two, by understanding how financial education really works. So, inherently, financial education is A, experiential, and B, autodidactic. What do I mean by both these words? Financial intelligence cannot be built by you reading about something,
Hmm.
watching something. It has to be built by you getting your hands dirty. You have to get involved in it. It has to be experiential. Otherwise, you're going to be an armchair expert, and armchair experts are not financially intelligent.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you have to combine everything else along with you actually jumping into it and doing it.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Step number three, getting to understand money basics. What are money basics? Firstly, how many people actually know what money really means? They might know what it means to them, but what does it really mean? Okay.
Hmm.
So money is used in our culture in a lot of ways. In our world, the way people use money is used in a lot of ways. But essentially, if you strip it down, money is just a tool.
It's a
A
means.
tool, it's a tool. You can use the tool
Oh,
the way you want.
okay.
I
Why
won't
do you
use the
use the
word
word?
means.
Why
I
would you
don't
not
use the
use the
word
word means and not?
because
Yeah.
with a means there's always an end, and it does
Okay.
not have to have an end,
Okay. Okay.
right? There's
Okay.
another word that comes to my mind. There's a word called autotelic. What does autotelic mean? Something that you do, and the purpose is in doing. The purpose is not in achieving a reward,
Hmm.
right? Money
Hmm.
works like that, and that's why I'm not going to use the word means. I'm going to use the word tool. And
Hmm.
what is the nature of a tool? The nature of a tool is that you use it the way you want for
Hmm.
you to be able to create the kind of life that you want,
Okay.
right? So money in that sense is neutral. It's a tool. You can choose to use it like this. You can choose to use it another way. But you're
Okay.
going to be able to use it in a way that is beneficial to your life only if your fundamental financial education is in place. Let's use an
Okay.
economics definition of money, okay? And that's a beautiful
Hmm.
one. I normally wouldn't, and probably if
I
there's
was
any
coming to that.
economist,
In fact, I
if
was in
if
fact coming
any
to that. Hmm.
if you have an economist who's logged in, they can correct me if I'm wrong. But the one of the definitions that I really like and they stuck with me is that money is what money does. Okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's beautiful. You know why? Because money is nothing if you don't do anything with it. If money remains just a concept and just static, then money doesn't really do anything for you. Money is what money does because it has to then move. You have to act, and money has to work. You have to work, and that's when the real essence of money comes out.
Hmm.
Okay. So coming
Hmm.
back to your question, you were saying, how do I build financial intelligence? Understand money basics. What is the real meaning of money? Money is not a show of wealth. Money is not attached to your status symbol, right? Money is not spending on doodads and liabilities. Money is just a tool for you to be able to live the kind of life that you want to live, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, a lot of people say time is more important, life is way more important. Of course it is. But for me to be able to live the kind of life that I want with the amount of time that I want, money becomes my most important tool, isn't it?
So how do we look now? I'm just looking at it from a perspective of a person who probably is earning minimum wages. So how do I look at from where I am? How do I what is my idea going to be about money? how does that person, what is your recommendation? How does that person, because for them, that money is a way for, for survival. So
Mhm.
how do I look at educating that person about, about money and things like that? What's your recommendation on that?
Hmm. So when people are faced with money problems, or when people have minimum wages, or if I have to quote you, uh,
Hmm.
education is the last thing they need, right?
Hmm.
If you're pushed into a corner, and I'm going to come and tell you, Fatima, you know what? Right now, keep your problems aside. Let's learn about how money works. You're probably going to scoff at me, right?
Hmm.
So let's understand this. Education needs to go to the grassroots. And by grassroots, I don't mean young children. By grassroots, I mean everybody's fundamental education base needs to have financial intelligence. But it
Hmm.
cannot come in when you're in trouble. If you're in financial trouble and I come and try to give you gyan about money, it's not going to make any sense. The first thing you want to do is to understand what kind of a financial mess you've created for yourself and how can you get out of that. Is there a problem that I need to address? So education comes later, firefighting comes in first. For a lot of people,
Hmm.
this question is addressed for a lot of people out there who probably are facing financial stress,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Remember this, that your first step, according to me, needs to be firefighting with your money right now. So getting the basics right.
So when you
And
say right now, you
interestingly,
mean
and interestingly, by doing
hmm.
those things, your financial skills are going to be put on the fast track anyways. Because by doing those things, you're anyways going to learn. But I don't want learning to be the reason why I'm doing it, because I need to first sort my money problems out.
Okay, 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 okay. So, what do you think now? I'm looking at it from a parent school perspective. So, what can parents and teachers specifically do with respect to, let's say, educating their children about this topic?
Do I need to put in a standard disclosure saying with all due respect?
Up to you.
Okay. What do teachers and educators and parents need to do?
Yeah.
They need to get off their high horse.
Oh, okay. What does
What
that
do I
mean?
mean by that? See, the only difference between us as parents, educators, teachers, and the children, there's just one
Hmm.
fundamental difference,
Hmm.
that we arrived before them.
Hmm.
Okay. We take it a little too seriously, saying that I'm bigger than you physically, I'm bigger than you in terms of age, hence I know more than you. And hence the only kind of education that can happen is a one-way transfer from me to you.
Uh-huh.
Before I go on, I remember Mark Twain. I read this quote and it was beautiful. And he said, I don't normally let schooling interfere with my education. And another quote which said, um, I'm always ready to learn, but I don't always like being taught.
Hmm.
So the first thing that educators and teachers and parents need to do is get off this role playing, that you're always out there to teach your child something. Because Fatima, look at this. If I wanted to learn from you, you don't necessarily have to teach me. I can be open to learning from you without you teaching me anything at all, isn't it?
Hmm.
Because learning just doesn't happen in one way. Learning happens in so many ways.
Multiple ways. Yes.
So first of all, get off your high horse. And finally, when financial intelligence is concerned, it anyways levels the playing field, because you as a parent and an educator probably know just as much as your child, and that's why you're facing financial stress.
Maybe our kids know better than us. Actually,
Maybe they do, maybe they
maybe
do.
maybe they do.
And so if you get off your high horse, you probably might learn a thing or two from them.
So
But
I'll
let's
just
get to
give
the
you an I'm just this is
let me
reminding of
finish that off.
example.
Sorry, I'm just going
Yeah,
to
sure,
finish that
sure.
off,
Go ahead, go
because
ahead, go ahead.
other than being funny about it, and putting this into a perspective that probably people have not seen before, but essentially that's needed, number one. But what can I do if I have children, if I have students? What can I really do? Draw it down to something that I can actually do as an exercise or an activity with them. Okay, because otherwise it's all going to be verbose. It's a lot of gyan, nothing to do. So let's give them something to do. Yeah. Every household and every family, Fatima, is a mini business plan or a mini financial plan. Okay.
Agree.
But we never approached it like that because every constituent in the family has a very big part on my balance sheet as a household.
Hmm.
When I start to approach it like that, then everybody understands what is the income coming in, what is the expense that we're making as a family. Out of the income, how much are we paying towards a liability? How much are we paying towards an asset?
Hmm.
So all of us play these games with our children. This becomes something that becomes physical,
Hmm.
something that you're actually doing. Everybody becomes involved in it.
Hmm.
And so from day one, what happens is because money is such a taboo, doesn't make dinner table conversations at all, does it?
Yeah, it's quite
But
difficult.
maybe, but maybe you don't need to talk about money. What if you start approaching it like this? There's no talking left to do. Start to approach it like this. Put it up on the refrigerator. Put it up on the whiteboard in the house, and
Hmm.
everybody knows that there is uh, the Fatima household has a balance sheet, and everybody contributes to it, whether
Hmm.
monetarily in terms of money or whether in terms of an actual activity, because
Hmm.
every activity might have some sort of money attached to it. And
Hmm.
suddenly then you start having questions. I've actually seen this in experiences. You start having questions saying, so what is an asset? Can you please explain to us? And you won't have to explain verbally because you're actually building it along with them and you can actually show them. So that's number one. Every family, every household, every classroom unit can do this. Number one. Number two, all children, if I have to make that assumption, get an allowance or a pocket money, right? Now, normally, how is this allowance? How does this entire system of allowance go about? You're giving your child a certain allowance for the month.
Hmm.
Either you get nothing in return as a parent, or you're dangling the reward carrot in front of the child and saying, if you do X, I'll give you your allowance. If you don't do X, I won't give you the allowance, etc. Right?
Hmm.
Let's break away from that and change that narrative. Okay. Let's take a leap and tell the child, if you want an allowance every month, go figure out a way to create it for yourself.
Hmm.
Be dependent on me giving it to you. Go find a way to create it for yourself. But
Hmm.
before I tell the child that, I need to make the change in my head because as a parent, I'm constantly telling the child, money is not for you to worry about. You're too young now. Think about it when you grow up. But when you've grown up, it's probably a little too late and there's so much undoing left to do then.
Hmm.
So make that mental shift for yourself and start having that conversation with the child, which says, firstly, why don't you create your own allowance? Go find
Hmm.
ways. It's
Hmm.
probably going to encourage the child entrepreneurially. Think of ideas, and I bet children are going to come back with ideas, fantastic ones, to create their own allowance.
Yeah. Yeah.
The two actual
So
things that you can do on the family level are these.
that's fantastic. I think, creating that balance sheet, getting children involved into your financial planning, keeping open conversations regarding money. And I think, like I said, in our country, sexuality is also something which is so difficult to talk about. And money is also something which is very difficult to talk about because we don't really have conversations when we are young. So we don't, talk about it, even if it's emotions for that matter. We don't really sit together and talk about it. So I think those, topics do get a little difficult. So one point which I wanted to add was just one story which kind of reminded me when you were talking about how kids can be financially more equipped, I would say, is because one day when my daughter, she had 500 rupees, I remember, and I told her, you can, go ahead and do whatever, you want. And she went and she bought ice cream, and she bought something to eat, ice cream, and I think it was a burger or something like that. And I was unhappy about it. And I said, why did
Hmm.
you get an ice cream and burger? You could have actually spent on something else to, get yourself something that will last, something that
Hmm.
you think would stay with you. And then she said, Mom, if it was you, you would have actually gone shopping and bought some ridiculous clothes. And maybe that is something you'll wear it once or twice, at least by having an ice cream. I'm happy. And I think it was, you know, even though I didn't really sit with her and, tell her how to spend that money, it was her choice of, deciding where she wants to do. But I think there was a logic there that, with my money, I want to satisfy or I want to be happy. And I think with eating, at least, I fill my stomach, I feel happy. And it was something which was important for her at that time. And I thought of it after that it was very important for her that time. It was not really it was coming from a space of probably need, but a positive need, and not something
Mhm.
which comes from my desire of going and buying clothes. You get what I'm saying? So that kind of reminded me about how, yes, if we kind of give our children that responsibility and that ownership from the beginning, maybe they can learn that skill from beginning. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny you share that example because the only thing that I wanted to point out in that example was that both mother and daughter use their money towards the expense column. So let's not forget that, first of all. So if we
Mm,
made that balance sheet at home, then
mm,
both Fatima
mm,
and her daughter have gone in for something that gives them instant gratification. And there are so many choices you can make with your money. Do you want to build an asset? Do you want to spend it on a liability? Do you want to spend it on an expense? And obviously, I'm using words that probably people are not very well accustomed with, or probably they
mm,
are. Or if
mm,
they are accustomed to it, then they probably don't know the real meaning of all of these words. So 10 minutes back, you asked me a question in terms of how can I build financial intelligence. It starts with words. Go understand what these words really mean. What is an
mm,
asset? What is
mm,
the difference between being rich and being wealthy? What is a
mm,
liability? How does compounding work? Go ask yourself these questions. Go find out what this really means. And it's going to open up a whole new world for you. And so, the same story that you narrated to me the way you did, you'll probably have a whole new perspective to it because you're suddenly going to have the conversation saying, yes, it was a need, it was positive. I needed gratification, something that gave me comfort, something that made me feel good. Mom would have shopped, but also both of us have spent income on expense. And any
ah,
income that I spend on expense is money that I don't let grow after this because I've already spent it.
okay. Okay. So what you're saying is, I think that's where mindfulness comes into the picture of how do you use reflection to focus on things that will allow you to grow your money and wealth rather than spending it. I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Reflection will come in when you know what it really means in the first place. I can't reflect unless I know what essentially finance and money really means. So it starts with education first. It starts with first intelligence, intellectual intelligence, understanding what money is, what rich is, what expense is, what asset is. Once I know it, I can reflect on it. But I can't reflect on it if I don't know it, because then I'm going to have conditioned reflection happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
bring my bias and my color to it when
I get that.
objectively I don't understand what it really means in the first place. And that's why it's a combination of intellectual intelligence as well.
Okay. That's good. That's a nice point. So let me just ask you a question that's coming in my mind space. So one common thread we've always seen is the fact that financial stress and probably emotional draining. It can be an emotional draining aspect for people. So
Mhm.
now I know you've kind of already spoken about it, about how probably money and emotions are connected with each other. But
Mhm.
maybe if you can probably throw in a light about how it can actually create stress as well.
Um,
Or how do we relate to that stress that comes from, that sense of a financial drain or emotional drain?
Yeah, but I mean, we tried addressing that a while back, right? Didn't we? When we said that there is no real direct correlation between your stress, which is essentially the number one emotion that everyone is feeling out there in the world today for whatever reason, and that with your money, there is no direct correlation. I'll tell you why I say that. Let's assume that, Fatima, we took away all your money troubles today. Okay? Just imagine that for a while. That you did not have to work for money ever again, and money was never going to be an issue in your life again. Do
Hmm,
you think that would be the end of your stress?
maybe not.
Yes, because you'll find something else to be stressful about simply because you haven't understood that stress doesn't come from an externality. Stress comes because you can't handle your own system and you haven't
Hmm,
understood the baseline fundamentals of what that externality is. Let's
hmm,
replace money with husband. Okay?
hmm, hmm,
Can we do that? So let's assume that you had relationship trouble. What are the two areas you would focus on if you had relationship trouble? On yourself. So you would go within, understand yourself, and you would focus on the husband, the other person on the outside. And that's how you would try to make the relationship better. Now you take away
Hmm.
the husband, put money back in. What are you trying to do? The same thing. Understand how money works and understand how you work. And
Yeah,
that's when
you're like,
that
yes.
correlation will be healthy then. And let's assume, let's put another flavor to this. If I gave you all the money in the world, you know what you're going to be stressful about? If you were
Hmm.
not financially mindful, you would be stressful about, oh my God, I wish this money never goes away. And if you find someone else in the neighborhood who has a little more than you, that's again going to start stressing you out. And that's why in all of these aspects, mindfulness comes in because you've got to constantly stop, pause, breathe, and question yourself.
Interesting. So I'd like to stop here and invite our viewers. If you would like to ask questions, you can post it on the chat box there, and we'll see if we can address them today. But let me come to a very important question, Rahul. If you can give some actionable inputs with regards to how
Yes.
to deal money during this time, during the COVID scenarios, what do you think are the very basic, let's see, very actionable basic points that maybe I can go from tomorrow and start doing? So what are those things that I have to start doing? Some practice is something which is actionable.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm so glad you asked me that because I've been doling out gyan to people for the last 46 minutes, but now let's talk to them about something that they can actually take home. Okay.
Yeah.
COVID, first of all, and with everything that's happening around you, it's the best thing that's happened to you. Yes, I actually mean that. It's the best thing that's happened to you because it's forced you to stop and given you an opportunity to reset.
Hmm.
Okay. All of
Hmm.
us are living such fast lives that stopping is out of the question. We don't even slow down.
Hmm.
And you can see things clearly only when you stop. Stillness helps you to see things clearly. When you're going at breakneck speed, you might not even see things. And so, thankfully, COVID has brought all of us to the point where we can stop and reset. Now, look
Hmm.
around you. The first thing, Fatima, what's been your regular credit card bill vis-a-vis what your credit card bill is now when you're
Hmm.
locked down, staying at home, not being able to do anything else?
Hmm.
Is it shaved off 50%? Is it shaved
Up.
off 80%?
Yes, of course.
You know what's been shaved off,
Hmm.
Fatima?
Hmm.
It's what I call FAF. All the unnecessary add-ons has all been shaved off. Are you still alive? Are you still living? Are you eating? You're still all right. Essentials coming in, everything else above that is all FAF.
Hmm.
And cost of life is not expensive. And that's what COVID has made us realize. It's the cost of our lifestyles, which is the FAF above that, that may or may not be expensive, depending upon how you choose for it to be, right? So the
So,
first realization is
hmm.
first realization is make that distinction between needs and wants. Make that distinction between essentials and discretionaries. So for all
Hmm.
of us, let's go back to our budgets. Let's go back to our expense sheets. Let's go back to our diaries if we have them. That's how we maintain our expenses. What's
Hmm.
the first thing you can do? Check the difference between what you're spending now and what you were spending then. So you cannot have an issue with an income problem because you're probably spending 20% of what you were spending earlier, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you've never maintained expenses, then the first thing you want to do is learn to live within your means. What does that mean? First, go back to the drawing board and ask yourself, how much money am I really spending? You'll be shocked to know that 9 out of 10 people that I meet, and when we're talking finances, they have no clue of the amount of money they're spending every month. They say, Pesa aata hai, and we don't know where it goes.
Just
No matter
like
how much
time.
I earn, no matter how much I earn, I just
Hmm.
don't know where the money goes. So the first
Hmm.
thing is you have a lot of free time, right? And your husband is probably annoying you right now. So the wives can do that. The wives are annoying the husband. Husband goes do that. Go do that. Take that time and do that, and go back to the drawing board and make your expense budget, make your statements, and ask yourself how much am I really spending. And from that, then understand that that a very small part of that is required for you to maintain your life. Everything else is what you choose to do over and above that.
Mm.
That's the first thing you can do. Second thing, increase your imprint in terms of the types of money that you can earn. What do I mean by that? We probably missed it out earlier in one of our questions, but one of the basics of financial intelligence is that it tells me that money is not just one type. Money has various types, right? I can
Interesting.
earn money from various sources and I can earn various types of money, and all of them work very, very differently, and all of them contribute to the kind of life that I live very differently. Okay, so without getting into too many details, go find out what are these various types of money and understand then, can I become a little more entrepreneurial? I've been pushed into a corner. It's the best time for you to come up with something else for yourself. So you're pushed into a corner, ask yourself, what more can I do for money? What other skill can I leverage for money? What other asset can I monetize or actually liquidate and use for money? Can I reduce my liabilities and my debt? Can I reduce my loans?
Mm. And how can I do that?
And ask yourself all of those questions, because unless
Mm.
you have the entire snapshot, you're not going to know whether you can or not.
Mm. Mm.
Number three, very important. And this is where the concept of other people's money comes in, OPM. If you can use other people's money to protect your own money, it's a fairly intelligent idea. What do I mean by other people's money? Go protect your money with all the protective covers that you have there in terms of insurance.
Okay.
So if somebody else is paying you for all your future medical costs, loss of life costs, critical illness costs, etc., go out there and get those for yourself, because you're not spending on it, somebody else is. So make
Mm.
sure that wealth protection or income protection is in place.
Mm.
So simple things that you can go back and start doing now. And
Okay.
tomorrow, when you get back to some sort of a, for lack of a better word, normality, then understand that there are certain financial ratios that you want to stick to as an individual and as a family. What do I mean by that? Whatever income you earn, make sure that at least 40% of that goes into savings and investments. Okay, 40%. Number one. Number two, whatever your expenses are, make sure that no more than 50% of your expenses are discretionary, which is the FAF on the top, the unnecessary items. No more than 50% should be discretionary. Number three, if you're spending a part of your income to pay off a loan or pay an EMI, which
Mm.
in my language would be servicing a liability or making a liability, then make sure the same amount of money that you're paying towards a loan or a liability, you also pay towards an asset. Build an asset along with a liability, because otherwise your financial statement is going to look very, very weak, because you keep building a liability for yourself and not an asset, right? So 40% of your income, 50% of your expenses, and the same amount of money that goes into an EMI should also go into your asset building.
Okay. Interesting.
And one last thing, or rather two last things actually, if I can take the liberty to do that. Go and educate yourself on what compounding is. They call compounding the eighth wonder of the world, and it's not without reason that they do that. And very quickly, I'm going to explain to you with an example what compounding is. Take a chessboard, 8 by 8 squares. Okay, so you have 64 squares on a chessboard, right?
Mm.
Start with the first square, right? And start with number one on the first square. And on every successive square, Fatima, just keep doubling the number. So one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Can you fathom what figure you're going to reach on square number 64?
Right now, no. I can't.
Neither can I. You know why? Because my calculator doesn't support so many figures. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't even know how to verbalize that figure that comes up. But I will tell you what that figure is. It is 6,000 times the size of the US economy today. 6,000 times the size of the biggest economy in the world today is the figure that you reach on square number 64. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if that doesn't blow your mind with compounding, nothing will. Because compounding means nothing else but keep doing something over and over again over a long period of time, whether that's money or anything else. And that's why compounding is something that everyone should educate themselves on. And to leave these guys with three things, something that I've observed in the last 20 years, people who don't struggle financially, Fatima, I've observed three common traits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number one, they're always open to learning, flexible, malleable, open to learning. Number two, they're very, very fluid, so they can adjust to change extremely quickly. It doesn't matter whether it's COVID, post COVID, pre COVID. Do I need to learn new money skills? Old money skills are, they don't apply anymore. So extremely fluid and nimble. And number three, they build a sort of a balance in themselves, which helps to build a neutral objectivity towards anything, whether balance in your investments or money, or balance in the way your thought processes work, or balance in the way your life works. And balance is at the very baseline of any foundation.
So that's those are actually attitudes of mindfulness, open-mindedness, adaptability, flexibility. And what you're saying is actually something which is correlating to what we actually do when we have to deal with our emotions and things like that. So
Mhm,
fantastic. So now we're coming to the end of our conversation. So I'm trying to see if I can get some questions for you.
mhm.
But if I compounding is an interesting concept, especially to me. If you had to give me a very practical example about how we can use compounding into our daily life, if you can just simplify that a little more, because I love that. I love that concept of compounding. But for
Hmm.
me, who is so unaware, how can I use it? If you can give me one little example.
You have two daughters, Fatima.
Yes.
You've been pregnant twice.
Yes.
Is it possible for me to deliver a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant?
No.
Right. So compounding works the same way. I need to go through the 9 month process for every baby, right?
Okay.
Compounding is all around you. Just look. When you actually plant the seed, can you eat the mangoes tomorrow? It
No.
takes a while, right? Have you heard of the bamboo
Okay.
shoot and how the bamboo shoot grows?
Okay. Okay. So what you're saying is that it takes a little while for us to get into that phase of compounding.
No.
So it's got something to do with investments, or how do you explain that?
Compounding is a neutral concept. It has nothing to do with math, arithmetic, numbers, investments, nothing. You can apply it there if you want. And a lot of people have applied it there and built massive amounts of wealth. But
Mm,
compounding is a neutral concept. Compounding essentially means something that grows over a period of time. And after a certain inflection point, it grows not incrementally, but exponentially, simply because there is something called a multiplier effect. So it starts to multiply and then grows exponentially. Have you seen the adolescent stage in your daughter? Suddenly there was a spurt, a growth spurt.
mm,
So for 10, 12 years, they were growing normally, you thought, and then suddenly there was a growth spurt. And that essentially is how compounding works. So it works slowly over a period of time, but unless you get your child to year number 12, you're not going to see that growth. And so that is essentially what compounding means. You apply to any aspect of your life. They say that a lot of these sports people, they're not born skillful. They probably, some of them are born talented, but that talent needs to be harnessed over a period of time. How do you harness it and build a skill out of it? By compounding your effort day after day. And there's this concept of 10,000 hours of practice that any sports person goes through before that talent can be harnessed into a skill which helps him or her perform at the best of his ability.
Okay.
So you apply this concept to any aspect of your life.
So that means there's a bit of training and investment over there as well. So would you recommend that people go through learning or some sort of training, coaching, mentoring? And that will probably, because I know it's very difficult to give you, or very difficult to give anyone an example or a probably an idea of how to work this out, but it's very specific to people based on what they want, what are the requirements, their goals. So, would you recommend that we kind of invest into learning and probably get a mentor or coach for us? Would you recommend that?
I don't recommend anything. I'm trying to give you a neutral viewpoint. The choice is yours. You ask yourself, what are the important things in your life? If money becomes one of them, if financial mindfulness is one of them, then go out and learn. Now, how do you want to learn is up to you. Like I said, there are so many ways you can learn. You choose how you want to learn. Coaching, mentoring, training, etc. is one way to learn. But what I've experienced in the last 20 years is that there are so many ways that I can learn. In some point of time in my life, I like learning a certain way. Another point of time, I like learning another way. So essentially, the choice is yours. You've got to understand whether financial mindfulness, financial intelligence deserves that kind of place in your life.
Or otherwise, just wait for a crisis to come. It'll anyways teach you.
Well, the funny thing is, Fatima, that a crisis should be pushing you in a corner, and you should then work on the principle of necessity is the mother of all invention. So suddenly, then you're going to start to become more inventive, start to pull out things that you never thought you had, start to being more open to learning. But a lot of people even let that crisis pass away. What do you think is going to happen once the COVID lockdown lifts? You're going to get caught up in the rat race again, and you're going to forget all about these problems that you had because you've got to go out there and live your rat race life again.
Hmm.
And that's why you need to take a pause, and that's why mindfulness, because it makes you think, do I want to face this again? There will be another COVID. It might not be a COVID, but there will be another COVID coming in for your
Hmm.
finances and for your lives.
Yeah, there could be a lot of crises that will come and push us to the corner and get us to kind of get our back straight with regards to all the aspects of our life. So, if I have to probably invite you to share a few final thoughts for our audience, what would that be?
Oh, wow. Uh, Funnily, Jim Carrey comes to mind. You know, the
Hmm.
famous American actor, comedian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He once said, everyone should be rich and famous because then everyone will realize that that is not the solution. And so, what does that mean? Don't be rich? No, no, doesn't mean that. It means be rich, but do it mindfully. Make money, but do it consciously. And manage that money intelligently, skillfully, and aspire to be free financially, but do it with some sort of meaning. Because
yeah.
money is absolutely fine till it stays in your pocket.
Hmm.
Once money gets inside your head, is when it starts to become a problem.
Hmm. Interesting. So, if I have to summarize, Rahul, what you're trying to say is that financial intelligence can be clubbed with mindfulness, which makes it a lot more easier for us to kind of understand what, how, or what is the meaning of money in our life, so that it kind of gives us that. And also, when you talk about financial intelligence, there's so much to it. There's abilities, and there is technical part of it. There's reflection. Maybe there is an attitude that we need to bring in. There's so much that comes in when it comes to financial intelligence, and that's what you're trying to say as well. And also, I think something that was interesting for me is the fact that how difficult it is for us to talk about things like bodies and sexuality and emotions and relationship, intimacy, for example. That sort of intimacy with money is not really spoken about till it kind of hits us when we
Yeah.
start earning, And then we
Yeah.
kind of use money to fill our needs, and we kind of put our attention to money that is getting moving away from us, because that's what it does, because we are running
Hmm.
away from a crisis in our life and happiness in our life. So that's how money also runs away from us. So I think that is somewhere where we cannot really give someone an objective type driven answer to it, but I think it's a exploration. I think it's something which is like a journey which each one of us have to take so that we can manage our money. Am I right? It's just like managing the time. You can't really manage time. You can manage probably thoughts about your time. So likewise, you can't really manage money. I don't know, but maybe we can manage our thoughts, our feelings, and the money just knows how to manage itself. So maybe that's the way I'd like to put across our learnings for today. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, Rahul. I think it's a good conversation. Like I said, for all the ones who are watching us, is just starter. I don't know too much about how to bring in. Even though I'm a mindfulness practitioner, I do understand mindfulness when it comes to relating to relationships and emotions, education. But when it is to adapt itself to money, I was struggling myself. So it is a conversation which I wanted to have to understand where to begin and where to start walking on this journey. So I have some clarity on that, at least from where to start. And maybe we could have more conversations like this in future, and go a little more deeper into these ideas. Maybe
Yeah.
when we can learn about pause and things like that. So for all the audience who's watching us, we are coming up with a mental health awareness week carnival, which is going to be happening in June and July, or July. We're coming up with dates very soon, which we will be announcing. And hopefully, then we would like to have a little more deeper interaction, maybe, or a workshop by Rahul, where he tells us how do you use those techniques and skills in real life. So how do I build that assets, and how do I work on my liability? So that is something that we can look at as a part of our learning, and this is open to all the audience as well. So maybe that is something which we can plan for future. So more conversations. But thank you so much, Rahul, for your time.
Thanks.
And
Thanks for having me, Padma.
you're welcome. So now we're going to be moving on to the workshops that we have. So we'll see you around. Yeah. Thank you so much,
Okay.
audience. Have a fantastic day. And thank you so much for your time for being with us. Thank you. Thank you, Rahul.